February market update. And just like the Super Bowl, it's buyers versus sellers. This is the Super Bowl of real estate, and we're going to get into it right now. Thanks so much for watching. This year is shaping up to be a lot like last year if you check out the data. However, the biggest difference is the starting point as far as inventory. So last year we were looking at 45, 50 units per sale at this time, but last year it's at 133 units for sale in February, but this is what we saw in March of last year, so it's very consistent in that realm. The biggest thing, the hardest thing to predict is how much inventory are we actually going to get to in the spring or summer. So what nobody knows is how many sellers are out there getting ready to list. And the big question is, will those expireds and those holds and those canceleds come back to the spring market at a lower price, as the new listings that we've seen really consistently is we're seeing sellers price lower when they're the new listing on. We're not seeing very many new listings reaching for the stars or seeing what they can get. We'll hear that narrative from time to time. Yeah, we sure will. But we're seeing a much different seller in 2026 than we did in 2025. Whereas in 2025, they really kind of had to wait and see what happens as far as selling the property. But I'll tell you what, buyers are coming away with closing costs. They're coming away with concessions in the form of repairs done and or credits, and they're coming in with price reductions. So for sellers to be in a strong point, if they're able to sell their property at a price that's competitive where they get multiple offers, they're much more likely to stick to that price. Sellers that are ready to stick to their price, they're able to get multiple offers, they're priced within a range that they get those multiple offers and those backup offers. They could hold escrow together a lot easier or go into one of those backup offers. If you're priced so high that you only get the one offer, they might wait a couple weeks to even, right? Maybe even a month, but it's not competitive. They're not going to jump off the shelf to buy the property. We got the data to prove it. So check this out. For Ventura, City of Ventura, last year we had 133 actives. Last year we had 48 pendings, and we had 38 sold. So this is March. So it's actually like on a 13-month revolver. So what I think is really important, that we're trying to predict where we're going. That's why I'm comparing this February to March. But what's really interesting is that the pendings are way up. It's 64 for the month of January, and now that we're in February, it's actually 74. So we hit about a peak of 80 or 90 current escrows last year in the busiest months, March, April, May, and June. And that's about where it stayed for those 4 months. So I think we're getting there for sure. The question is, will we push over that with pendings? Will we reach above with closings? It really all depends on the actives. So if actives stay low and they stay under 200 or under 175, we'll probably see things just kind of carry on and flatline as they are. We could even go up to 200 units per sale in the spring, but I don't see any big reductions or price drops unless we go over 200 units for sale and the interest rate stays relatively the same. So there's a lot of conjecture about the bounce that we'll see as the Fed analyzes the CPI reports, as we have the new Fed chair, Warsh, who's announced, but he has to actually take the office and they have to actually take action. But what we are seeing is we're seeing the quantitative easing. We are seeing them purchase the Fed-backed securities, which means that these mortgage-backed securities, when those are purchased, it really allows the bankers to bring those interest rates down, different than the Fed funds rates. So what's really interesting right now is going to be these numbers. So last year, we saw a high volume of absorptions under 600,000. Right now, we've got 25, 15, and 3, but it was more consistent like 18 and 20 and 19. So we're seeing just as many actives, just as many pendings, just as many solds. There's only 3 solds right now under 600,000, which is a pretty low number for close. There's 15 pending, which is absorption, which is good. So that leaves like 10 properties that didn't sell. So those are going to sit the sidelines. that's what's going to help that active number go up in total units for sale. There's a big contributor everywhere between 500,000 and 5 million is going to be the contributing to that total units for sale. They're going to get 10 in the 600 range. Now here's where there's a really strong absorption, the $600,000 to $700,000 range. If you think you're going to qualify in that range, like, this is for you. This is a hot ticket for you. If you're qualifying for $600,000 to $700,000, whether that's your first-time home buyer, whether you're a move-down buyer, whether it's an investment, this is a strong market. Now, while it might seem really competitive, what I think is happening is I think the $700,000 to $800,000 properties have moved down into the $600,000 to $700,000 range. We've already seen that happen. So if you're waiting for a catalyst, something to get a little bit better, well, the better's already happened. It might get a little bit better, but I don't think there's much better this spring and or fall. All I think is that the only shot you have is that more inventory goes up and rates don't go down, then you can get better on price. That's the only shot you have, and it's either going to happen or it's not. And if you're hungry for property at all and you're in that price range, you want to be paying attention to what's available out there. Is it what you're looking for? Is it a single family home? Is it a condo? Is it a townhome? Typically those are going to be your condos and townhomes. You don't really get into the single family range in under 7. It's possible, but it tends to be a fixer. We saw a lot more fixers, especially on the West End, selling in that range. But that was 5 actives, 9 pendings, and 6 sold. So having more properties absorbed than they even have active, that thing's going to thin out. So I think we're seeing a bounce. I always go back to my lava lamp theory. So I think we're seeing a bounce in that lower range, while there is less that hit under 6s, more hit over 6, just over 6. Now, 800,000 to 900,000, that's one of my favorite price ranges, and the 9 to a million, basically 800 to a million. That's everyday folks buying houses. That's a starter home, a median home, and we'll see that price point travel from, Oakview to West End. Even parts of Midtown, out to the East End, Oxnard, Camarillo. It's a harder number to hit in Camarillo, but it does hit. What we're seeing for 8 to 900 is 13 actives, 9 going pending, and then 6 sold. That's pretty strong. And then moving on into, that was the 7 to 800 was 10, 11, and 4. And then 8 to 9 was 13, 9, and 6. So the 8 to 9 is still very strong. 9 to 1 million, we have more actives. So 14 actives, 8 pending, 8 sold. So it's falling off a little bit. And I've definitely seen that in that $950, $1 million expectation. Those might actually be selling like at 875 or 9. So we're seeing a little bit of falter there. Properties going from the 1 million to 1.2, that's still pretty strong. We have 9 actives, 5 pendings, 3 closed. 5 plus 3 is 8, 9 active. So they essentially have 8 moving off the board, 9 on the board. So what's coming available is being sold. In the 1 to 1.4 range, we have 13 actives, 6 pending, 5 sold, which is, again, that's pretty good. And that 1.4 was the inflection point last year. Let's see if it's changing this year. So 1.4 to 1.8, we've got 10 actives, 3 pending, 2 sold. So that's about half of the absorption. So see how that's different, which is pretty good for that price point. The fact that we're seeing absorption that was really tough last year. So what I think is you have some folks that would have wanted to list at 2 or 2.2 that are listing at 1.8, or someone who wanted to list at 1.8 listing at 1.6 or 1.5, and kind of bringing those homes down into a more attainable space. The big reason why people and sellers were kind of projected as overinflating in their heads what the value was because when the inventory was so thin, when it was a fourth of what it was now, any buyer in the market pretty much had one option for the type of home in the neighborhood that they're looking for. It was like maybe 2. Okay, do you want this one? Okay, that one just sold. Do you want this one? Okay, I'll take it. So, and with everything they got, it was just a really manipulated environment. So what we're seeing most, the message I want to get across to you guys is we're normalizing. This is seasonality. The fact that there was 132 a year ago, just a month ahead, but a year ago, that's great because that's consistency. So then we can start really measuring value and making sure we're not overpaying for properties, and also making sure that we're not over listing in price. The next price point would be 1.8 to 2.1. Great inflection point. So 10 actives, one pending, one sold. So if you're trying to sell around 2 million, there's not that many buyers at 2 million. Those folks are probably buying down under 1.8. And then you've got 2.1 to 2.4, 6 actives, one pending, zero sold. Not that attractive, but here's where it's positive. 2.4 to 2.6. So if you're a luxury seller and your property is legit worth, 2 to 3 million, there's a margin there, but you have to know, is your property more of a 2.5 property, a $3 million property, or are you more like a 1.8 to 2 million? And really knowing whether you're hillside, whether knowing you're on the beach, the condition of the property, modern finishes. Clean and dated just doesn't do it anymore. It really doesn't. Even for your most luxurious properties on the beach and hillside, they're attractive. There are people that want to live in those, but those folks want to pay 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. No one wants to pay 2 million, 3 million, and then do a renovation. People who pay over 2 million, they expect the finishes to be done. They expect the heavy lifting to be done. Even some future forward technology happening with voice automation and things like that. 2.4 to 2.6, we had 3 actives, 3 solds, and 0 closings. But what we did see is we're seeing that absorption. The fact that there's 3 actives and 3 sold, that 2.5 spot is hitting. 2.6 to 3 million, we've got 5 actives, 1 pending, 0 sold, and we've got 3 to 4 million. We got 6 actives, 0 pending, 0 sold, and 4 million up. It's 1, 1, and 0. 1 active, 1 pending, 1 sold. So for those of you guys that stick around and watch, this is really great because I can run through all those numbers, but let's figure out what that means. What that means for luxury sellers is that the big gap between 133 properties and the peak that we hit in actives last year of 200, most of those were luxury properties. We are seeing almost 25 to 1 in some of these positions. So that means you've got your property on the market, no calls, no showings. Well, let's drop it 100 grand. Well, that's not going to make a difference. You have to get into the science. You have to look deep. You've got to do almost like 3 scales of different comps. I always like to run the micro, what it is, what's near it, and then we spread out, do the city. But here's the big mistake people aren't making. People are looking too micro, not looking macro enough. If someone's shopping at 3, 4, 5 million, they're probably looking at Ojai. They're probably looking at Santa Barbara. They could even be looking at Thousand Oaks and Westlake. So when people are looking for that luxury home, you've got to really spread out and look. And you have to do these micro reports and kind of compare what you have across, all these different cities and neighborhoods. So very difficult for sellers nowadays. Now that the inventory's up and it's about 4x what it was, you're really competing as a seller. So that's that lava lamp effect. So it's going to be very interesting what happens this spring. And I think the spring will really dictate what we're going to see the rest of the year. What we see in March and April, that'll be it. Either we're going to see something happen with these Fed's funds rates and see these interest rates come down, or we're not. And if we see that interest rates kind of stick or hang around, it's going to be very inventory important. Now, one of the biggest things is the migration. We have more people leaving Ventura area than coming. So typically the people that are leaving are also the wealthier people. So that absorption of luxury properties is not as likely. Now the people that are moving here do tend to have, more money are coming from wealth. So there's some people that, it's that word trapped, they can't leave. It might be economically better, but it's just not feasible for them to do that. So the people that can leave or came and tried it out, they're now, moving back to Hawaii or moving back to Florida or moving back to New York, or Tennessee. They're kind of remigrating back to where they came from, because let's face it, it's on, this town isn't for everybody. What we are going to see is we're going to see locals like you, if you're here and you've lived here, that want to move neighborhoods. Now we're going to have more downsizers than upgraders. So a lot more baby boom generation wanting to sell those 2-story homes, going after the single level style homes. Also, the best locations in town tend to be smaller Spanish style bungalows. So anytime you've got like a 3 or 4 bedroom, multiple bathrooms, and a clean, beautiful, renovated property, those are going to go quick. We've got something like that coming up on Coronado Street the next months, and pretty soon we're going to be doing a video, West End versus Midtown. We're going to kind of compare the neighborhoods, compare, neighborhood to neighborhood, what the advantages are, do something a little bit more long form and evergreen, so it's not so price dependent, but we're going to show some of the reasons why some would choose Midtown over the West End, also some of the reasons why some people would choose West End over Midtown. And the same goes for going East End, which would really be past, more past Mills, but past Victoria, Montalvo, out on the 126, and kind of get into those details and what that has to offer. So thank you guys so much for watching this data update in February, and it's going to be an interesting year. And if you have any questions, please reach out. We've got the email, text, phone, however you feel. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.